Hi, I'm Lindsay Smith, host of Unrivaled's Inside the Jersey podcast, the podcast where athletes share their journey to becoming pros and the passions that fuel them outside of their sport. Today, our guest is Alec Mills, pitcher for the Chicago Cubs with a storybook journey from being a walk-on in college to having his name etched in the history books. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get things started by welcoming in Alec. Alec, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. I'm ready. I'm excited to do this. So.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you know where we have to start. September 13th, 2020, you no-hit the Milwaukee Brewers at Miller Park, marking just the 16th no-hitter in Cubs franchise history and one of just 305 in Major League Baseball history. Do you think you'll ever get tired of talking about that day?
I think it's a yes and no answer. Obviously, I'm not a huge fan of talking about myself a whole lot or anything like that. So I think that's the yes portion. But at the same time, no. I mean, I think when you say those numbers, it really puts it into perspective. It still really hasn't settled in yet, kind of what happened or what I did. I think it's best put into words for me. I think I sat on the couch with my wife after the game that night and just kind of looked at her and was like, what the heck just happened? Like, it was just like, oh my goodness, like, how did this happen? I'm forever thankful for everything that came together, a little bit of skill, a little bit of luck, a lot of help from the team, but obviously a day that I'll never forget.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge accomplishment. So I'm curious, when you look back, was there anything about that morning that felt different or maybe that you did differently?
No, I mean, I think for me, it's just trying to keep every day the same. Yeah, I think it was a day game I should know this, but I'm pretty sure it was. So it was kind of an earlier morning to get out of bed and to eat and get breakfast. Usually I try to eat a pretty good bit before the game just because if I try to eat closer to, I really can't eat too much. The stomach's a little more uneasy. I think a pretty normal day. I don't think really anything was weird or different that kind of was like, okay, something weird's happening today or anything like that. So kind of a boring answer, but it felt pretty normal.
What was your interaction with your catcher, Victor Caratini, like during that game?
Well, before the game, we had the normal scouting report meeting, talking about hitters, the plan of attack and stuff like that. And then during the game was pretty normal early on, after the first, second, third, fourth inning, had our little talks in between, how we want to attack the next inning, who's the hitters coming up, where we think we can really get guys out. And then I think, as more as the game went on, we kind of, I guess I really noticed he stopped talking to me after about the sixth inning. I think he kind of sat about 10 feet away instead of right beside me. I think at that point I'd realized what was going on. I was okay with it. And I think it's kind of a thing that people do. They don't want to be the guy that jinxes it or tells them something or that isn't maybe something that'll help down the road. But, I think it was pretty normal up until about the end. And then I think we didn't talk to each other until after the game. So it was kind of crazy.
Did you guys talk about not talking at that point after the game was over?
Well, no, not after the game. We didn't really say too much about that. It was kind of just my first interaction with him, probably outside of like the fifth inning was when we hugged on the mound afterwards. So that was kind of crazy, a special moment. And hopefully that, he realizes how much he helped me and carried me through that day.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that. How much of a role did he play in the success of that game?
I think I can attribute most of it to him, honestly. I mean, I think we got on the same page early. And, Willie's the same way, Contreras, him and Vic really work hard at, having a good game plan and really, kind of taking the game out of our hands. And if it's something where I can just, shake every time, I don't have to worry about shaking him off and can just say yes every time, then I think it helps me, stay in the groove and really just worry about location instead of, the type of pitch. So we got on the same page early and just, I think he had a good idea of what he wanted to do. And I think he had faced the Brewers a little bit more than I had. So maybe he had a little bit more experience with that. But, I think I definitely leaned on him, especially late in the game when things were kind of getting tight, maybe a little nerve started kicking in. So he was definitely there for me and the calming presence that I needed.
And to celebrate the historic moment, you had watches made for you and Victor. It is tradition. How did you decide on Aorus watches and what did you want to have inscribed?
I think the tradition is typically a Rolex, but, I think I kind of got on the Rolex website and I'm like, man, this might cost me quite a bit of money, maybe a couple paychecks worth for me. So kind of looked on some other watches and stuff like that. I actually tripped upon the website Aorus, and I actually saw they had a Roberto Clemente watch coming out that they were doing a special edition. And I think we just had Roberto Clemente Day. It was either right before or right after it happened. And, Victor's from Puerto Rico. So I think that was really special day for him. And he was actually able to wear the number 21. So I think he was really excited about that. And when I saw that watch, it was definitely something that was perfect for him. So I actually got into contact with them. And actually, Ian Happ actually helped me out a lot with that too. He had a contact with them that helped. But they were able to, kind of fit an engraving on the back. Because the back of the watch is actually where the Roberto Clemente, this patch is what you would call it, but it was engraved onto the metal part was. So they were actually kind of able to fit in there. It said Victor Caratini, Mills no-hitter, and the date. Funny story about that, I actually was talking to them, and they're like, well, what do you want engraved on it? And I think Hap was included in the conversation. I'm like, I have no idea. I've never done this before. And so Hap actually texted Lester. John Lester was like, hey, what do you have on yours? And he sent a picture. So that helped a lot just to kind of see what guys do for that. So that was kind of a funny story about that too.
Yeah, it seems like it kind of just fell into place there, like perfect timing, perfect website, perfect Aorus watch, everything.
Yeah, the
really
watch
cool.
was awesome, and it was a beautiful watch. So, hopefully he, really enjoys it and wears it because it, like I said, it was a beautiful watch.
Yes, they are beautiful watches. Now, for our listeners who aren't familiar, Aorus is an independent Swiss watch company making purely mechanical watches for over 115 years. They're focused on bringing change for the better, like working with nonprofits, such as the Roberto Clemente Foundation for this limited edition piece. Aorus is a longtime favorite of people who know watches because of what they represent and at prices that make sense. For more information, check out Aorus at aorus.ch. That's ORIS.ch. So I'm sure there was a lot going on after the game ended, but when you think back on it now, what was the most memorable post-game moment for you? Maybe that small thing that just stands out to you that not a lot of people really noticed.
I think how much the team enjoyed it with me, I think was really special to me. I think getting I guess not really a dog pile, but kind of a mob on the mound was awesome. And, watching back videos, seeing everybody's faces running in and how much they were really excited for me and excited to be part of that moment was definitely special for me. I think I wouldn't have been anywhere without them that day. So after the game on the mound was special. And then I was on the field interviewed a couple of different times. So I was out there about 10 or 15 minutes extra. And then when I got to the top of the dugout in Milwaukee, the locker room's 15 steps away from the top of the dugout. So I kind of heard them, oh, here he comes. And I ran in there, and then kind of the same type of thing, just somewhat of a mob, and they had a beer shower waiting for me. So that was definitely special, and it gives me chills thinking about it right now. But I think for them just to be as excited about it as I was definitely something I'll never forget.
What else did you do to celebrate? I know I saw on your Twitter you have a custom putter now and some National Baseball Hall of Fame recognition there as well. Yeah,
so I guess I can start with the story right after the game. We got home and my wife and little man met me. That was awesome to see them and to see his smile and everything was pretty special after the game. But we got back and she actually ordered Pequod's Pizza. So it's a deep dish pizza in Chicago. It's my favorite pizza in Chicago now after that night, after we tried it. It's just really good. And the way they kind of burn the edges, I don't know what they probably have a certain word for it, but it was really good. So that night, that's how we celebrated. For me, my agency actually was kind of already in contact with people about getting stuff done. And I believe Bettinardi actually contacted me about doing some sort of commemorative putter for it. So that was really cool, special for me, especially since Bettinardi is a Chicago company, I believe. So they were excited to kind of mock something up, and they sent me a couple different drawings and had me choose. So obviously that's a moment or a piece of history that I'll always be able to have and can kind of use on the golf course every time and maybe show off when I'm playing with different people. But so I have several things like that. I think Jack Daniels actually sent out a bunch of bottles to everybody on the team. They etched in the glass their name and the date and no hitter. So that was really cool and really awesome of them to do that. I mean, like you said, the Hall of Fame took a baseball and then my hat from it. So that'll always be there. So that's pretty cool. One day I can, maybe 10, 15 years down the road, take little man to the Hall of Fame and show him that's my hat and that's my ball that I used during the game. So that's definitely pretty cool.
When you think about being able to do that in 10 to 15 years, is it hard not to smile?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's when I'll be able to really, realize what I've done. Like, I think it still hasn't settled in yet, what really has happened. And I think maybe when I get to go there and see that and share it with my son and my wife later on, I think that's when I'll really realize, what happened and how special that day was.
I know the interaction after the game with your wife and your son will always be number one for you. But outside of that, what was the best interaction or conversation with someone who reached out to congratulate you?
I had several friends and former teammates and former college teammates text me and call me. I think I had over 400 text messages after the game, so that was kind of crazy. But I think for me, like I said, it just goes back to family. I think to share that moment with my mom and dad afterwards was definitely something special. I mean, I think they were the ones growing up that took me to practice every day and made a bunch of sacrifices for me growing up to really, be able to play the game that I love and just they never hesitate to get to any game that they can. And they want to watch every chance they can. They watch every game at home when they're not there. They'll drive up one day and stay for the game and drive home 8 hours that night just to see the one game. And I think I think the memory of that goes back to my debut. I actually, with the rain situation, was kind of delayed in having my debut, but they were there in Kansas City for a couple of days, and then I pitched that night and they drove home the next day. And I think my mom and dad didn't sleep. They went straight to work. So the older I get, and now that I have a family, it really just means a whole lot more, and to see them do that. And now that I know that I would do that for my son, so it's pretty awesome.
That's very special indeed. Now, you still had about a month left of the season after the no-hitter. I'm curious, what does a game like that do to the rest of the season? Does it make it harder or easier?
I think it probably made it a little harder, but not crazy. I think for me, having to, interview all these times and really talk to all these people about it, but I wanted to pitch again. I think getting back on the mound was good for me. And obviously it was tough getting back out there, and any sort of, hit was obviously worse than how the last outing went. I think I actually gave up a home run in the first inning the next outing. So it was kind of like, well, okay, so not as good as last one, but that's okay. Obviously that can't do it every time out, but just getting back into the normal swing of things and trying to finish the season strong and do what I could to help the team win was big for me, just getting back out there.
And that no-hitter wasn't your only shining moment this season. You had a lot of great performances with the Cubs this year. What does this season mean for your career moving forward?
It was big for me. Obviously, coming into the season, I was, I guess you could say, fighting for the fifth spot in the rotation. I came in and pitched well in spring training, but Chatwood came in and pitched just as well, if not better. And really, he won that spot fair and square. I mean, it was definitely his spot to win. So I think it was just, okay, well, we'll see. I can go to the bullpen and be a long guy, or I can, fill in wherever I needed. Obviously went home for quarantine. And then on the way back, what happened to Quintana was definitely kind of a freak accident and unfortunate, but it, gave me the opportunity to fill in and make a couple of starts. I think I had a couple of good ones to start the season. So it was good for me to get the confidence under my belt and know that I can do this at the big league level. So I think for me, it's just a season of staying healthy, and knowing that I can do this at this level. And at the end of the year, obviously the numbers, I guess, probably weren't as great as I'd like. But I think if you take a couple bad starts out, I think they're a lot better. And I know that I can improve on a lot of things. So it's kind of encouraging for me to see that.
Alec, one thing that really stood out to me was that just days after your no-hitter, when I'm sure everyone was wanting interviews and wanting your time, you made it a priority to virtually meet with patients at Advocate Children's Hospital in Oak Lawn. How important is it for you to make sure you're giving back?
Absolutely. I think, like, with me having a family now, I can't imagine having to deal with what those parents have to deal with. And then obviously what the kids are having to deal with, like imagining if my son had to be in a hospital or something like that for a long period because of something serious. It gets to me, and it's just one of the things in the world that I really just have a soft spot for. I think children in hospitals and children's cancer and stuff like that, I think it's not fair to them to have to deal with that. Obviously, I've lived a lot longer life than they have, and obviously had nothing serious happen to me. So I'm very fortunate, and I think it's very important to me to give back and do anything I can to try to make that time in there a little more special. And obviously, the position that I'm in, I think I have the opportunity to do that. So being on the same team as Rizzo and all that he does for that, I think it's a good opportunity for me to kind of, I guess you could say, ride his coattails and just kind of be there every time I can to help those guys out and really just, be a special moment. If I can put a smile on a kid's face every day, then, I think it makes that day perfect. So
from this point on, what goals have you set for yourself as a pro, both on and off the field?
Well, I think the number one goal for me, and I guess it's a pretty cliche one, but I just want to stay healthy. The old slang, the best ability is availability. For me, I think I just want to be able to be ready to go, every time they want me to. And if I can be ready to go and give them my best effort, good opportunity to be in this league for a while, at least. That's just really my main goal, is to be healthy and just do everything I can to help them win. I mean, I think it's a team game, obviously, and individual stats can kind of take over sometimes. But for me, I think it's just, as long as we win that day, it's a success. I came over to the Cubs a year after they won a World Series, and I was actually with Kansas City the year after they won a World Series. So I've been a year behind 2 World Series rings, and I've never actually really won a ring in my whole life with sports. So I think it would be something that obviously I dream about every day, and obviously something that every ball player dreams about. But, so for me, it's just about winning every day. So I think that's my main 2 goals, is to win and just to stay healthy.
All right. I kind of want to go back and talk about your journey to this point, because it wasn't all glitz and glam from the start. It took a lot of hard work to get to this point. So let's start with you being a walk-on in college. Tell me about that experience.
I was actually going to UT Martin to be an engineer. So I actually had given up baseball, didn't really have any offers out of high school, no Division I offers. Really didn't even have any contact with any Division I teams. So it was kind of like, well, I guess it's ran its course. I'll go do what I need to do, get an education, and, kind of move on. And was there for a couple of weeks, the team practicing on the field. And it was one of those things where it was like, man, like, I think I can still do that. I think I can still compete at this level. And so just kind of contacted the coach and was like, hey, is there any way I can come, like, throw in front of you guys or pitch to some hitters at any sort of open tryout? And it's actually perfect timing, because he was like, yeah, I think in a week or 2, we have a tryout coming up for walk-on. So I want you to come on out and we'll see what you got. I hadn't thrown probably all summer, so it was like, oh, I need to go throw some. But, so I went through for them. And then it went really well that day. Felt good. Threw a lot of strikes, I thought. So kind of a funny story. They really never told me that I made the team. They kind of just didn't tell me to stop coming. So it was kind of never that story of hey, the big story. I get in the call that I made the team. It was just like, well, I guess I'll keep going. Nobody's told me anything different. So that's kind of a funny little aspect of it.
And then you spent 8 years in the minor leagues. Along the way, what would you say was the hardest moment or greatest adversity that you had to overcome to get to the point you are now?
I think the easy answer for that's I had Tommy John surgery in 2013. I think physically it was tough, obviously, but I think mentally for me it was the tougher part. I actually got hurt on one pitch, was feeling really great that day and threw one pitch and heard it pop. So mentally for me, getting over that hump of kind of knowing that I'm healthy and knowing that I can do it and that it's possible again was big. I think it was tough for me to kind of let go and, relax myself and just throw for a while. So I think the easy answer for that toughest moment of my career was probably that.
To overcome that, what were the specifics that you had to do to be able to find that mental toughness?
For me, I've always been a very positive person, and I've always been a kind of whatever happens, happens. Like, if something bad happens, well, that was meant to happen. Everything happens for a reason. So let's do this. Let's attack this the best way we can. Can't change it now. So let's just figure out how we can get away from this and get better from this every day. So I think that helps me a lot. I feel like I've always just been a super competitor. I feel like I've always been not the greatest, don't throw the hardest, not the most athletic person out there, but I think I'm going to compete every day to the best of my ability. Hey, here you go, hit it as far as you can and see what happens. I've had success with it so far. I think that's a trait that I think can hopefully carry me a long way. And I think it's been a trait that a lot of very, very good baseball players have had. So something that I'll try to keep my whole life.
Who has been the most instrumental person that has helped you along the way?
I think it kind of transitioned. I think early on, like I said, my family, my mom and dad, and then, I had an older brother growing up. So obviously I was always playing with older kids. I think that helped. They never took it easy on me. I never wanted them to take it easy on me. And I think obviously I just wanted to be with my brother. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to do whatever he was doing. So, obviously I think he helped early on. And then obviously in high school, my parents taking me everywhere and everywhere I needed to be, practice to the game, paying for this, paying for that, just so I could keep doing it. And then as slowly as I got into pro ball and got married, I think my wife every day kind of maybe if I need to get home and have 10 minutes and get some stuff off my chest to her and tell her some things, she's always been awesome. She's always listened. And I think it helps a lot that she's always loved baseball growing up. So she knows what she's talking about. She's very knowledgeable about it. So it helps that she kind of knows what I'm talking about and can kind of talk me down and help me center myself and try to keep, baseball separate from the home life. I mean, I think that's a big thing for me is, baseball happens at the field and I don't need to bring it home to my wife and not my kid. He doesn't deserve that. They don't deserve that. They deserve my full undivided attention, every chance that I could get to see them. So I think that's something I really want to take the rest of my career.
Things have really come full circle for you, Alec. I know you grew up attending games at Wrigley with your dad and your grandfather, and now you're playing for the Cubs at Wrigley. I mean, talk about storybook foreshadowing here. Have you ever just sat back and thought about this journey of yours?
So it's kind of surreal. My grandfather was a Cubs fan, so obviously it, made my dad a Cubs fan. And then my mom grew up in the Chicago area, so she kind of was a Cubs fan. So kind of just by a family tree became a Cubs fan. We moved and lived in Tennessee for pretty much my whole life, so it wasn't as easy to get to Chicago and watch games, but we made it up quite a bit still. Obviously, playing for the Cubs now has been really surreal and pitching in Wrigley Field, so it's been a pretty cool I don't want to say ending because there's still hopefully a lot more to go, but where I am now, it is pretty special to be, a Cubs fan growing up. Obviously, it's been a special, special journey that I will never forget. And I know my grandfather's watching and I'm sure he's just as excited as everybody else that, I'm doing what I'm doing. And the first time I stepped on the Wrigley Field mound and saw that Harry Carey logo up on the, the press box was definitely a surreal moment. And I definitely had to step off and kind of realize what's going on, like what I've done, what has happened. No, it's definitely not something that I've sat down and kind of realized everything, but I will, and I'm excited for that day. But hopefully, it's a good bit from now, and I get to play for quite a bit longer.
Absolutely. What would you say is your fondest memory from your childhood at Wrigley?
I think just sitting up in the stands with my grandpa and my dad and my brother. I mean, I think sharing those moments with them. I think I remember, it's crazy. One of my most vivid memories is sitting in the stands. And obviously in Wrigley, they have the big poles, in the seats where they can kind of obstruct the view quite a bit. And so I think there was a couple times where we had seats that maybe weren't the best seats. So you would miss, maybe the hitter hitting the pitch because the pole's in the way. I think that's kind of a Wrigley Field landmark that happens in the stadium. But that's one of my most vivid memories is the kind of the poles being in the way of watching the game. But that was a long time ago.
How enjoyable is it to have those memories with your family from your childhood and to also now be able to make new ones in that same space as a new father?
Yeah, it's crazy. This year, obviously, unfortunately, with everything going on in the world, Carter really wasn't able to get to Wrigley. Hopefully, we can kind of maybe dig our way out of this as a country and we can get back to more normal life and we can get back to fans in the stadium. And I'm excited for him to be able to sit in a game and hear the crowd and, watch a baseball game in Wrigley Field because it's definitely a special place in my heart that I have a lot of memories growing up. Just hopefully a place that he'll be able to soon tell somebody else in an interview about memories he had growing up with his dad playing baseball at Wrigley. So I'm definitely excited.
And then finally, Alec, I know it's got to feel really good to be at home right now with your wife and your son. How much are you enjoying having this time during the off season with them? Yeah,
it's obviously very special. And I think with everything going on, we're kind of pretty much stuck in the house still. But, I'm okay with that. I just want to, lay in the ground and play with toys and just make him smile and laugh. I think that's every day I wake up, and that's my goal. I'm definitely enjoying every moment with them and know that, there's going to be times where I'm gone for a week at a time. So, when I can be here every day is definitely special, and just trying to enjoy the off season as much as I can. It's not the longest. So you try to soak up every moment.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and we wish you the best of luck throughout your career.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. I really appreciate that. And I had a lot of fun today. It was definitely good questions and kind of a good little change of pace.
This has been Unrivaled Inside the Jersey podcast, giving fans a refreshing look at sports. I'm Lindsay Smith, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Look for Unrivaled's next Inside the Jersey profile of a likable professional athlete coming soon.